people just aren't a fit for a job, and you can try and force it, but there is intrinsic things in you as an individual.
Discomfort zones literally help you learn.
It will say in my headstone, "Here lies Jordan, he died from overthinking," right? That's what it's gonna say. Hello and welcome back to People First, the Young Careers podcast. I'm your host Jordan, and today we're asking, should you pick your career based around your personality? I'm joined by Tom Keighley, CEO of Urfuture and Toni-Marie Birtle, our internal mobility consultant at ManpowerGroup. So the first question that I always ask all my guests is, what was your first ever job? I'm going to come to you first, Toni, if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. My first job, 13 years old.
Okay.
Straight into Saturday Girl.
Hairdressers,
yeah. Straight away, sweeping the floor, cups of teas. The worst part about my job was when someone was getting a perm and I would have to stand there with the rollers and just pass them to the hairdresser.
Yeah. Do you feel like that has given you a bit of charm? Like, I would say you're a very outgoing and gregarious person, and I feel like it does make sense that you started off in a salon. Do you know what I mean?
Ripe and ready into socialising. It's like hairdresser's job is like you're stood there for hours. You have to make conversations. You develop the skills very quickly.
That's fair.
Make a conversation.
Completely fair enough. Thank you. What about you, Sam?
Mine's a bit of a funny story, to be fair. My actual first job, I lasted like half an hour.
Okay, fair.
In hospitality.
Where was that? In hospitality?
Yeah, so I actually spilled a drink on someone.
Happens.
And then panicked and then kind of had a bit of a dispute with him and then walked out. So that was like my first job, I think like 15 or something like that. And then the reason why I set up Urfuture is I had a lot of jobs probably after leaving uni. I dropped out. Yeah. And then ended up falling into sales. It was probably like my first ever job as an apprentice at BMW doing sales. So yeah.
That's cool. And our production team made us take a personality test before today's episode, which I loved, right? So let's go around the room. What were I'm going to let you just get your phones out actually, yeah. What were your standout results, and do you think they actually reflect your career? Tom, I'm going to come to you first because I know we have the same personality type. So I'm going to let you talk through what a campaigner is, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, obviously for me, I do a lot of these, and I've done them for jobs and things like that in the past. I think we were chatting before about senior level jobs, and I did them for a lot of them. So I think for me, like, I'm always come across as extroverted, which I am naturally, which obviously comes across in that's like 75%. Very intuitive, so like I'm always looking for opportunities and things like that, which has probably helped with me in my career. Probably the one thing I always feel when I do them is that I maybe come across as like I don't care about people enough, like the feeling side of stuff. And it's not, it's because kind of like, I guess I always score quite low on them because I always look at results and I'm driven by results and things like that. So that can be the, I guess, the side piece of that. And then, I always come across as very, very assertive. It's actually something I reflected on as an individual, that my natural personality type is like that. So sometimes then I need to think about how I interact with other individuals who maybe aren't as assertive as me and can sometimes be scared of conflict and things like that. And because I'm quite short at times, it can actually then upset them. So like it's something that I actually do when I do these things is reflect on my type as an individual and how can I actually improve, because that's who I am naturally at the end of the day.
That makes sense. Toni, what about you?
We're quite similar in a lot of ways, but I got consul. So I'm like the same. I got extroverted. I got observant. I got feeling though, which is where we're different. I'm purely feeling driven. Like
me too.
Someone tells me something, pulls on my heartstrings. I've changed my decision now. Let's do that. So we're a bit different in that aspect. I do love numbers, and I think that kind of is what rationalised me a bit more when I make a decision based purely on emotions, which I used to be horrific for in uni. I do everything based on instinct and feeling. Now I'm more in like my corporate work environment. I'm like, okay, let me step back and think about this a bit more. And then I also got the assertive one, but I'm actually only 64% on that one. Most of my results are like kind of in the middle, except the judging one, which I'm like 92, which I think is your organisation and
that's fine. So I'm ENFP, that's extroverted, intuitive, feeling and perceiving. So I am apparently an enthusiastic, creative and free-spirited personality type, driven by deep values and a desire for meaningful connection, which actually does pretty much sound like me. That
checks out pretty good, yeah.
However, my key weaknesses are that I have people-pleasing tendencies, which I've spoken about actually quite at length on this podcast. I do sometimes have a lack of focus, I would say. Or I maybe get too focused on the wrong task. And it will say in my headstone, here lies Jordan, he died from overthinking, right? That's what I was going to say. However, I was really, really interested because my personality type says that my job should be in marketing, PR and comms, which is what I do work in. So I feel like mine was quite true to what my career path is, if that makes sense. Would you guys agree?
I was going to say, fun fact, people who are quite like anxious tendencies, overthinkers, highly self-analytical, they're the type of people that really thrive in creative fields, because part of creative work is like external criticism and praise, and so obviously that affects their like natural anxious tendencies.
Perfectionism,
so it checks out. Yes,
perfectionism at the end of the day.
Tom, Urfuture is based pretty much on that similar idea. It's matching people who are to what they should do or what they could do. So could you explain a little bit about Urfuture? And also, when young people take these kinds of quizzes or personality tests, how accurate do you think they are as a starting point for your career? I've just said I think mine was great there. You know, I do work in marketing, PR and comms, but I'd be interested in your take if that's okay.
Yeah, I think if you think about, if I go back, the reason why Urfuture exists. So I kind of went through my own journey many, many years ago, before all the young people today. And even then when I left school, there was kind of no support in terms of like, what do you do? What is the job world and what does it take to be good at all those different jobs? And I think for me, I then went through like 5 or 6 different jobs, got sacked from them all, felt really bad about myself. And actually I always had the traits to be good at sales. And I think like my idea kind of started to come at that point when I was thinking, right, well, now I'm in sales and I've done it and I'm actually a sales director and all this sort of stuff. Like I can actually pin back all the traits in myself as an individual about why I'm good at it.
Ended up there,
so that's when I started thinking about Urfuture, and I was like, okay, well, I think it's pretty much like that for most jobs. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be the totally defining thing, but most jobs have kind of certain traits about them. Now, personality is kind of one area, and I think like that's where we kind of looked at it. And I went into the market and looked at like Thomas International. I looked at all the different.
That's the one I've done before. Thomas International,
So I looked at all those, and as I started to kind of do my own research about it, I was like, well, there's nothing that actually clearly pinpoints the traits about you that you have and then can direct you to a job and actually explain it all.
Okay.
So that's when we started to look really with Urfuture at, rather than using Thomas International or something like that in Urfuture, we would go and build our own behavioural science. Okay. And so that's what we did. So we went and took 2 years. We worked with a behavioural scientist who had trained at the University of Oxford, was one of the leading behavioural scientists in the UK. And basically we went around interviewing, did like thousands of hours of interviews with current professionals, basically to understand from them what traits they had that made them successful at the job. And that was kind of how we got the science for Urfuture. And the idea behind Urfuture was it wouldn't just be about personality, it would be about personality, but also something called basic needs, which are like hygiene factors. So like hygiene factors are basically something that you actually require in your job as a basic, and if you don't have them, you'll leave.
Okay, fair.
And then you have other things which are like intrinsic motivators, so like that's kind of like job satisfaction. So are you actually going to enjoy that job day to day? And then also extrinsic motivators, which are like job motivators, so are you going to be driven in that job? And so Urfuture is personality, but also the 3 other areas which define success in a career.
That makes complete sense. Toni, you're the internal mobility specialist in our internal talent acquisition team. So could you explain for listeners essentially what that means in a nutshell?
So quickest summary would be, my job is basically, so I've created our internal talent pool, which is essentially a space for people to come to and say, for whatever reason it be, whether it's they need to be redistributed because of redundancy, they need a change, they're ready for progression, they're not happy where they are and they need to get out. It's the first point of call to go to before leaving your job, where you say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, and then my job is to go away and try and find them that.
Okay.
So a lot of the times, you know, like say, for example, someone's not happy where they are, the first part of the conversation will be, well, what do you enjoy? What don't you enjoy about that role? And then I'll kind of match them to a job that has those things that they're looking for and take away the things that they don't enjoy.
That's great. And when you're working with people who are going through a massive life change like redundancy, do you find that maybe because of their heightened emotions that they struggle to think about. Things like what job might match their personality or their transferable skills. Say, for example, so, and I've been in this position before and dealt with Toni for listeners and for yourself, right? So like if you've got someone, for example, who is a recruitment consultant but wants to move into a different role, how do you like pull these transferable skills or these like personality traits out of them to show them that they could be good for something else? Does that make sense?
Yeah. First thing is, when people are in a really heightened sense of stress, like redundancy, they panic and they're like, I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, I'll take anything. And it's like, but the problem with that is you might put yourself in a role that you're actually not happy with out of pure panic. And then also, if they weren't even happy in the role that they were in, and then they're like, just give me the same again in a different brand, but you weren't happy in that, so use this as an opportunity to self-reflect. Think about the type of thing that makes you happy and keeps you motivated in your role, and then let's put you into that. So there's quite often I've had people come to me and say, I've been in, operations for 10 years, so like I'll probably just have to do that. And it's like, well, actually, take a step back. In this call alone with me, you've been extremely conversational, you're super confident, you're very self-assertive, you know what you want. It sounds like you're very results driven. So have you considered something like sales? Because it's a complete shift. Don't box yourself into something just because it's what you know. Yeah. Because actually you might have qualities you've not thought of that would do really well in other careers.
That was great and amazingly put. At Brook Street, we help people get jobs across abundance of different sectors. But for example, we recruit for prison officers, we recruit for social care workers or care in the community workers. What sort of personality traits would you think you would need for that sort of job? So I'm going to give you like a prison officer, prison warden, that sort of role, and I'm going to give you that support worker, ancillary carer sort of position. So I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, cool. Well, to be fair, we have like loads of those on your feature, for example. So like how it works is the companies choose traits, right? So like the traits usually that come across for those would be kind of active. So like active in the job. So you want something that's active, you get around in the role because that's going to make you happy.
Physically moving, like being on your feet.
Yeah, so like that's one. So like another one would be compassion for people. So like in that sort of role, you'd really need to care about people and have a desire to look after people. Yeah. So that's really, really important. Other ones, I would say, potentially is kind of attention to detail. Yeah. So you're dealing with medicine, things like that. Yeah. Potentially you need to have really high attention to detail. And so, yeah, probably for me, like that's how your future basically works. Basically, that's how we do it.
And I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to challenge your thinking here. So I consider myself a true people person. Yeah. I love feeding off the energy of others. Yeah. However, I am not, and I also consider myself very empathetic. Yeah. However, I would not be empathetic enough to care for someone that I don't physically know and love and care about. So do you think there is limits to it in situations, or?
I think it's the levels of it. So that's the understanding is it's about, and I think this was my challenge with a lot of personality assessments out there, was that they didn't go deep enough. So there's your kind of question. It's like when you're asking somebody in an assessment or in the career match, like in your future, is you care about people, but do you care beyond people, maybe in your own family or your own circle? Of course, yeah. And if you ask that question, you pull the trait. And so that's kind of like, you've got to go a bit deeper. And I think like personality and things like that are great, and the ones we did before are great, but they just don't probably go deep enough to get those things out to then use it in a system like a job system.
That's completely fair. And on the flip side, someone who maybe works in like a extremely secure environment like a prison, which might be, it could be high stakes, could be extremely pressured. It also could sort of be emotional when you are seeing completely different types of characters in there every day. So what sort of personality types do you think would go well with that sort of role?
I would say a personality type I think would maybe not be at the forefront of people's mind when they think of that is empathy driven. Okay. I do think it's important to have a strong level of empathy in those type of roles. But I think what's more important in those environments is you can handle stress well. Yeah. You can handle criticism well, and you can handle conflict well, and you're quite resilient because you're in a hard environment at the end of the day. So you need to be able to get on with your day and go home and still be able to function happily afterwards.
And switch off, exactly.
Be able to just step away from it, and it's not ruined the rest of your own personal life as well. And then I do think you have to be quite open-minded and also highly organised. Yeah. Like there's a lot of paperwork that goes on in these type of environments. Like you need to know what you're doing, where people are.
Lots of regulation as well. Yeah,
exactly. So, but like I said at the beginning, I do think the empathy plays into it quite well.
I think you'd be amazed because we work with the Met Police, for example. Right, okay. So actually, like, the biggest one they look for is social interaction.
Yeah.
So communication is actually the biggest trait that they look for when they're looking for office. It's just slightly different, but like in that sort of environment, actually being able to have a conversation with someone.
It's so important.
It's really important.
And I have actually recruited for both of those jobs before, helped recruit, and I know that the teams that would have, physically done I work in marketing, so physically done the calls and screened the CVs, they looked for people who had coached a football team at the weekends or worked with the Brownies or taught at summer schemes and things like that, because not only, especially with kids or young adults, because the conversation, right? Can you actually connect with someone who does not look or sound or speak like you? Can you work with people who are from maybe underrepresented backgrounds or have just had a different start in life, for example? So that leads me on to my next question, and I want to move more into sort of like myth busting the corporate persona or like the workplace persona, if this is okay. So I have a question here, and apparently I have on good authority that introverts make better leaders. Do you think that's right, wrong? I would love to debate.
I think that introverts I don't think it's as clear cut as introverts can do this better, extroverts can do this better. I think it's your whole personality is such a complex concept that someone who's introverted just tends to probably have higher organizational skills, for example, rather than they're going into careers, usually introverts, that are quite results driven, ops driven, behind the scenes, lots of these things, whereas extroverts are usually front and center, loud and proud kind of thing. So I think that introverts make good leaders because they're very meticulous, they pay attention to a lot of details. So I do think that there is some truth to it, but I don't think that means you can't be a successful leader because you're an extrovert.
I completely agree. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Tom.
I think it's actually not as broad as you think in terms of that. I think it goes down to the career. So I think like if I look at myself now today in the environment that I'm in, I started a startup on my own. Yeah. Built it. Now we have like 12 staff. Like an extroverted leader is really important at this time. Yeah. Because it's about driving individuals. It's about taking people on a journey with you, taking people on the vision. And extroverts naturally love that sort of stuff. Yeah. If your future got to like 40, 50 staff, which we're aiming to do, then would I be the leader then? Probably not. It's probably somebody who's more introverted. And I think as well, when you think about like a compliance leader versus a sales leader or a marketing leader, it's probably down to the career rather than just a blanket. Yeah. Is a leader better in one of those? I think it is what you're leading, really.
Yeah.
On the back of that, if you don't mind.
No, oh my God, I do not mind. Please, 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 please.
On the back of that, I also think if I look back at my experience of leadership, the leaders that have had the greatest impact on me and the ones that have been the most memorable for me as being successful and have inspired me and wanted me to be a leader are the ones that are visible. They're the ones that are present. They create a safe space for you to engage in conversations. And that's probably tying in with extroverted tendencies.
Yeah.
It's a bit both. I think you've got to be both. I mean, if I look at myself, I actually had my first managerial job when I was 23. Okay. So I kind of got thrown into it very, very young. And probably back then I was like just 100% extrovert. My whole management style was based on motivation. Yeah. Now, where I'm at today, a bit more mature, over 10 years on, is that like I'm more I am a bit of an introvert at times. Yeah. People, I come and let people come talk to me, don't speak, listen and things. So it's, I think it's just, you've got to be a bit of both.
This is something I was actually really hoping was going to come up because I have such a strong opinion on people change.
Yeah, they do. I agree.
When you were in college, and I don't know if you guys ever had to do this, but we always had to go have those career conversations with someone in the college, and they would give you a bunch of careers they thought you should go into, but it was based on like a 30-minute conversation. And no offense, me at 17 is not the same as me at 27.
I completely agree, and I have actually been quoted saying before that at one point I did regret building my career around my personality. Like I worked at, like you just said, I had a managerial position in a pub. I worked in a pub from when I was really young, and actually at one point thought I was going to have my own pub and I would be the landlord or whatever, but that's a story for another day. But I went then, I love talking to people. I went through uni and did marketing and PR, worked in a marketing department. There is this common trope, like another gay guy in marketing, and it's just because we tend to be big personalities, a bit chronically online. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So, but not every day do I want to turn up and be charming. In fact, I actually really don't every day, right? You know, and that's me being totally honest. But I'm in a position now where I work in press, I work in PR, I physically have to charm every single day. But I'm supported with people that really actually allow me to be myself and do that, you know, because sometimes I don't want to be the most gregarious person in the room. I just want to get on with my job and just do things, whatever. And sometimes I'm happy to perform and do backflips, but I'm supported by my leadership team, my sort of head of PR and my big boss, Becky, that they really just let me be myself.
I was going to say, I think this is a reflection of ManpowerGroup, to be honest. Yeah. I'm going to do a plug here, but in my role, I'm super, super social. Like, I'm on calls all the time, always like trying to talk to people, figure out where we can put people. And my manager is so supportive on stretch projects. Yeah. And all the time, I'll choose stretch projects that are like behind the scenes. Like, I'll do data. Like, give me something where I don't have to speak to anyone. So then I've got my time out during the week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. Something I've realised I'm really good at this year, I don't know if you guys agree, is like, I'm a really good critical thinker, right? Like, if I'm given the space to do so, right? So see if I'm working on a story in PR or a project or a campaign or something like that, I seek feedback. Like, I would come to you and say, right, I'm working on this. What do you think about it? Is this exciting to you? Like, would you talk about this to your friend later on? Like, I need to know from other people I need to actually have a brainstorm. I need to critically think and look at that stuff. I don't know if that's as much as a personality type, but I have now realised that I need to be in a job which allows me to debate and to argue and to do that sort of stuff.
It's satisfaction, that.
Right? So is that satisfaction then? Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So we could go around in this for ages, but what if we actually have a work persona, in inverted commas? Again, something I've debated quite a lot in this podcast is if you bring your true self to work, that is entirely different from our real personality. If so, should we be matching jobs to the real us or to the work us? Tony?
The psychology nerd in me is coming out here.
Enlighten us.
We do have work personalities. I'm a firm believer in it. Okay. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I think it's actually healthy. I think it creates a separation between how you are at work, how you interact at work versus how you interact with your friends. Mm-hmm. And I also think humans are social creatures. Like, it's our best skill, right? Yeah. And having these different social personas keeps our lives interesting. Okay. And I think it makes us more successful if you're able to adapt to your environment, adapt to the people you're speaking to.
Yeah, of course. Like code switching in a way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially if you work in a big corporate, I guess you should be able to talk to the sales director, to the office manager, to people in compliance as well. So.
Also, discomfort zones literally help you learn. So if you're in an environment where you're not being your natural self, you're going to learn how to cope with that environment one way or another, and then you've learned a new skill.
That's going to be one of the social media clips that they use for the podcast. That soundbite. I'm going to come to you before I move on, if that's okay. To the next question.
Yeah, I think.
Do you have a take?
Yeah, I'm a bit different on it. I think that a lot of people actually have to create personalities at work because they're not being themselves. Yeah. So I think that could be a negative. Mm-hmm. I think when you think about it, I agree in some aspects that, like, my general approach to management or leadership on my job has changed, but I'm authentically myself still because I am naturally. And I've been born to kind of do, I guess, what I am in. Yeah. So I think that probably what you have a lot of time is that young people don't understand what jobs are, go into them, stay in them because of maybe their security, things like that, and then have to kind of be a different person at work to who they naturally are. And that actually can lead to kind of people not enjoying jobs, but sticking at it and doing it for the rest of their lives and not really having fulfilled lives. So like, I think there is two sides to it, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not, my take on that, what you just said is, like, it's okay if you want to be a raver at the weekends and go into a quiet office job on a Monday, right? That is totally fine. But if you're feeling that you have to suppress yourself to fit into work, but also you're torn because you have to pay your bills. Yeah. Is that really what I'm taking from this?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, if you look, I've seen it over the years of like people just aren't a fit for a job. Yeah. Because of who they are as an individual. And you can try and force it, but there is intrinsic things in you as an individual that you can't change. Yeah. And so, like, make the most of those rather than, you know, kind of, basically forcing yourself to be somebody else.
I bet there's 100% a correlation as well between your personality type and how likely you are to stay in an uncomfortable environment.
Okay. 100%. Elaborate on that a little bit more, please.
Like, you know, people, it kind of ties into, you know, like, for example, there's more men in leadership, there's men get paid higher, not to turn this into a gender thing, but, and then, like, women, part of that is because men have stronger sense of self and they'll put themselves into these conversations more, and they're quite vocal about their success, whereas women have more of a tendency to kind of keep it more tame. I think it's the same with personality types in terms of their environment, where someone who is quite vocal and extroverted and will be very vocal about how uncomfortable they are and be more confident in their decision to make a change, whereas someone who's maybe quite introverted and quite pessimistic in their mind frame might think more of the worries of, but I won't be able to pay my bills, what if I don't get a job lined up? So they'll stay in their environment more.
Risk is it's risk. So like if you think about risk as an individual, and that's something that we are on different scales on. Some people are very risk averse, some people like risk. And so if you're in an environment you're not happy but you're a risk averse individual, then you are going to not take a risk. Do you know what I mean? So like that's the environment I'm talking about, is that like security and job security for individuals will come before sometimes happiness, and that's something that we trying to deal with in your future.
This is one of my weaknesses of my personality test.
Well, I've been on both sides of the coin before. I do get it. Like there has been times where I've maybe not really loved my job, but I wanted to have a really nice secure summer and not have to worry about again paying my bills if I was going to have to move out of my flat. But then there's also been times where I've been a bit like, screw this, you know what I mean? Like,
what's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst?
And there's a difference between having a bad day and hating your job. Do you know what I mean? We all have like, God, I have like, I go home sometimes and don't talk to my wife, do you know what I mean? Because I'm so depressed from work. But the next day I'm fine and stuff. So like there is a difference between the two. Like
I know.
This was hospitality for me. I woke up loathing the fact I'd woke up because I had to go in and do my hospitality job. Now I wake up, I don't bat an eyelid. I love my job.
I know. I do think that not just finding the right role for your personality type or, you know, what job you need to be in, but it's more how you handle situations at work can sometimes be down to your personality, you know? Toni, you look after internal mobility at Manpower, like I've just said. Do you have any advice on figuring out what we really need from our career / what can help us in the long term?
I think one big thing is culture of the work you're going into. So I would divide ManpowerGroup, obviously we've got different brands. In my head, each brand has a different culture. And sometimes I'll have a call with someone internally. Say, for example, Brook Street. They're really often working with these roles that require a lot of empathy, require a lot of social skills. So a lot of the people who want to be recruiters in that are probably going to need to have similar skills to that as well. And Brook Street as a culture is very sort of warm, social, you know, so you need to make sure you're going into an environment where the culture is going to kind of align with your personality type.
There's also a difference, though, in being a temporary recruiter and a permanent recruiter, too.
Yeah.
In terms of personality types as well, which, again, is something we could get into another time. But I'm sure you see this you have to see these things quite a lot, I'm sure.
Same with business support and operations versus recruitment. Like, the type of personalities you're seeing in those roles are completely different.
Yeah.
And what motivates them is different, which I think is another thing for when you're looking for a role and setting yourself up for success. You need to think what motivates you. Are you outcome driven? Are you money driven? Are you conversation and like social people driven? Because that can impact how validated you feel at work and if you feel successful.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Do you have I don't know if you've got anything to add on that?
I think for me, I would just say that probably for me, the biggest hiring bias that actually exists in society, most people think it's in recruitment processes, but it's actually pre-application, right? So the biggest actual challenge for organisations, for recruitment consultants, whatever it is actually self-selection and deselection.
Okay.
So basically, I think advising on careers is that don't look at what society says. And I think that I've got kind of growing up watching Coronation Street, males were in construction, for example, or females were nursery nurses, things like that. And I think my advice would be is that the reason we exist, for example, is that we try to kind of like remove hiring bias pre-application so that people actually look at stuff about who you are as an individual, the traits you have, and align them to careers. Yeah. Because when you do that, what you start to see is that you actually find jobs and stuff that you never would have pictured yourself in. Yeah. So I think like that's really important when you're looking at a job and a career is don't self-deselect.
Can you, I hope you don't mind, can you tell the listeners the story you told me on the way over here about your sister, please?
Of course, yeah. So my sister, she's 19 years old. She's diagnosed with autism and her symptoms are very much like she's not very good at reading social cues. Okay. She doesn't really understand what the other person's thinking or feeling or how she's supposed to react in social situations. And as a result of that, she's very introverted. She would much prefer to be around what she considers her like safety people she knows how to read. Yeah. She went to college and she course hopped quite a while until she found something and she accidentally found herself in car body painting. surrounded by guys. She was the only female on a college course. Now she's ended up, as of yesterday actually, she went to a body shop just to have a conversation with the guy. Today is her second day in a job that is full of men. It's a huge body shop and her job is to paint the cars, and she's absolutely loving it. And they've like taken her like under their wing and they've created this safe space for her. But she's actually naturally an introvert, and I can't believe she's ended up there.
I just said, like, that was a perfect segue from what you just said, you know, you just don't imagine, like, I know there's a bit of, like, gender norms in there, but that bias you take is a great point that you take that away from yourself before you apply for a job.
That is, honestly, it's like my biggest mission when I started the business was that if we could create a world and a space where people didn't look at historically why people have worked in certain sectors,
or
and
get
we can
put off.
reinvent that, then happy days, because we'll have changed the lives of so many young people.
Or get put off by going into a team because it's all men, and it's like, yeah, but they actually might have different personality types.
But
just
the reason it's all men is because of hiring bias.
What would you say your final takeaway is from today? So have you learned anything? Is there anything that you've maybe doubled down on, for example? And ultimately, should we pick a career built on our personality?
From an internal talent perspective, I think you should choose a career that aligns with your personality traits, but don't box yourself off. Don't be afraid to try something and then go, like looking at my sister, she's found herself accidentally in something she loves. It can happen. So don't pigeonhole yourself, but also, yes, probably try find something that aligns to how you enjoy your environment and the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously I've been in and around it for 2-3 years now, just like obsessed with it. So like, for me, it is the fact of it is that, you have to kind of look at those things. There is 4 key things that will determine if you enjoy a job, if you stay at a job, and if your needs are met, and then if you're happy there. So like, you need to look at those sorts of things before you go into a job. But also, as I said before, it's not just about when you're in the job and returning in the job. It's actually opening your eyes to the careers and opportunities that are out there that you probably never would have pictured yourselves in.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. Where can our listeners follow you or your work?
Yeah, not me. So we are the most watched careers channel in the UK on TikTok.
Great.
So Your Future app on TikTok and Instagram. Not me though, because I'm private on all socials. And obviously, you can download Your Future on iOS and Android. It's Your Future app. We've had 70,000 young people download it in 7 months. So it's there. Download it, and a lot of stuff we talked about you will be able to find on Your Future.
And Toni, if someone from the group wants to speak to you about taking next step in their career, can they?
Of course. We've got 2 main routes they can do. We've got the UK talent community, which they can join, and then they'll just get a conversation with me. And then as of very recently, this is a little self-plug here, we've started our Europe talent community. So we've aligned all our 26 countries across Europe so that we can create more European opportunities for those who are ready for like wider scope in their roles as well.
Amazing. And that's the end of today's episode. I just want to say a huge thank you to Tom and Toni again for joining me today. As always, if you're in the market for a new role, why not check out Brook Street online? There may just be your dream job waiting there for you. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you. See you later.